The Olympics are a symbol of human achievement, but in 1904, one event became a symbol of complete and utter chaos. We're talking about the 1904 marathon in St. Louis, Missouri. It was less of a race and more of a bizarre human experiment. The race was scheduled for 3 p.m. on a sweltering August day. The temperature soared above 90 degrees Fahrenheit or 32 Celsius. The course itself was a nightmare. It was a dusty, unpaved country road with 7 large hills to conquer. To make matters worse, the organizers decided to limit the runners' access to water. Only 2 water stops were planned. Their reasoning was based on a bizarre theory that withholding water would reveal the strongest runners. This was dangerously wrong. Adding to the misery, official vehicles and press cars drove alongside the runners, kicking up enormous clouds of thick dust. Imagine trying to run a marathon while breathing in a constant stream of dirt. It was a recipe for disaster. 32 athletes from 4 nations stepped up to the starting line, completely unaware of the absurdity that was about to unfold. From cheaters to imposters to near-fatal conditions, this race had it all. Let's dive into the cast of characters. The race began, and the problems started almost immediately. The lead cars churned the road into a thick, choking powder. One of the American runners, William Garcia, was found lying on the side of the road around the 19-mile mark. He was discovered unconscious and suffering from severe internal bleeding caused by inhaling so much dust. The dust had coated his esophagus and stomach lining, and the constant friction from running had caused severe hemorrhaging. Doctors said that if he had not been found for another hour, the condition would have been terminal. Garcia spent days in the hospital recovering. He was the first but certainly not the last victim of the course. Meanwhile, other runners were dropping like flies from heat exhaustion and dehydration. The lack of water was taking its toll. One runner, John Lorden, became ill and had to stop. The intense conditions were too much for even seasoned athletes. The single water pump available to the runners was located at a well around the 12-mile mark. It was their only hope. But with dozens of runners and only one source, it was a chaotic scene. The race was descending into pure survival. Amidst this chaos, one runner seemed to be thriving. American Fred Lorz crossed the finish line first, looking remarkably fresh. The crowd roared. He was crowned the winner, and Alice Roosevelt, the president's daughter, was about to place a wreath on his head. But then an eyewitness came forward with a shocking allegation. Lorz hadn't run the whole race. He was a cheater. Apparently, Lorz had dropped out from exhaustion after just 9 miles. He decided to hitch a ride with his manager. He rode in the car for the next 11 miles, waving to spectators and fellow runners as he passed them. When the car broke down around the 20-mile mark, Lorz simply got out and jogged the rest of the way. He entered the stadium to cheers, playing along as if he had legitimately won the grueling race. When confronted, Lorz immediately admitted it, claiming the whole thing was just a practical joke. Nobody was laughing. He was stripped of his victory and given a lifetime ban from the sport by the Amateur Athletic Union. The ban was lifted a year later, and he actually won the Boston Marathon in 1905, but his Olympic legacy was forever tarnished. With the cheater disqualified, who was the real winner? The title went to another American, Thomas Hicks. But Hicks's story is just as bizarre, if not more so. His victory came with a very dangerous asterisk. By the later stages of the race, Hicks was completely exhausted and on the verge of collapse. He begged for water. Instead of water, his 2 trainers decided to give him a special tonic to keep him going. This tonic was a mixture of strychnine sulfate, a literal poison, mixed with raw egg whites and a large swig of brandy. Strychnine is a powerful stimulant in small doses, but it's also a highly toxic substance used as a pesticide. This was one of the first recorded instances of performance-enhancing substance use in the modern Olympics, and it was horrifyingly crude. The concoction worked, sort of. Hicks got back on his feet, but he was now running in a state of delusion. When he began to falter again a few miles later, his trainers gave him another dose of strychnine and more brandy. They also gave him a warm water body bath to try and cool him down. His final miles were an absolute agony. For the final 2 miles of the race, Hicks was barely conscious. His skin turned a pale, waxy color. He began hallucinating, believing the finish line was still 20 miles away. His trainers had to guide him. When he finally reached the stadium, he could no longer lift his legs. He was completely spent. His trainers essentially carried him over the finish line, holding him up by his arms while his feet shuffled along. Under modern rules, this assistance would have immediately disqualified him, but in 1904, it was deemed acceptable. He collapsed immediately after crossing the line. It took 4 doctors and an hour of work to revive him. He had lost 8 pounds during the race and was in critical condition. He likely wouldn't have survived another dose of strychnine. Hicks was declared the winner with a time of 3 hours and 28 minutes, the slowest marathon winning time in Olympic history. He recovered, but he never competed in another race again. The ordeal had taken a permanent toll on him. But the story doesn't end there. The race had even more bizarre characters, including a postman and a pack of canines. Now let's meet Felix Carvajal, better known as Andarín. He was a Cuban postman who had raised money to travel to the Olympics. His journey started with a major setback. He lost all of his money in a dice game in New Orleans. Undeterred, he had to walk and hitchhike the rest of the way to St. Louis, arriving just moments before the race began. He had no proper running gear. He showed up to the starting line in his street clothes, a long-sleeved shirt, long pants, and heavy shoes. Another athlete, Martin Egan, took pity on him and used a knife to cut his trousers at the knee, turning them into makeshift shorts. Carvajal also hadn't eaten in nearly 40 hours. He was running on pure fumes and determination from the very start. Despite all this, he ran with incredible energy and a cheerful attitude, often stopping to chat with spectators along the route. His unorthodox attire and friendly demeanor made him a crowd favorite, a bright spot in a grim race. At one point, he was actually in the lead pack of runners, a remarkable feat given his preparation, or lack thereof. But Carvajal's journey was about to take another strange turn, involving a snack break that went horribly wrong. Still starving, Carvajal saw an apple orchard by the side of the road. He decided to stop for a quick snack. He grabbed a few apples and began eating them. Unfortunately, the apples he chose were rotten. Soon after, he developed severe stomach cramps and had to stop running. The rotten fruit had made him sick. Forced to take a break, Carvajal lay down on the side of the road and ended up falling asleep for a while. This impromptu nap likely cost him a medal. He had been in a strong position before his unfortunate snack. After his nap, he recovered enough to continue the race, still managing to finish in a remarkable 4th place. Considering he hitchhiked to the race, ran in street shoes, and took a nap, 4th place is an incredible achievement. His story embodies a strange kind of Olympic spirit, one of pure, chaotic resilience against all odds. Many historians believe that without the rotten apples, Carvajal could have easily won the entire race. But the absurdity doesn't stop with Carvajal. There were still other runners facing their own unique challenges. 2 other notable runners were Len Tao and Jan Mashiani. They were the first 2 Black Africans to ever compete in the Olympics. They were actually in St. Louis as part of the Boer War exhibition at the World's Fair, not as dedicated athletes. They decided to enter the marathon at the last minute, running barefoot, which was their custom. Despite their lack of formal training for this distance, both were excellent runners and performed well in the early stages. Len Tao was running a strong race and was in a good position to potentially earn a medal for South Africa. But this is the 1904 marathon, so of course, something ridiculous had to happen to prevent that. While running, Len Tao was suddenly pursued by a pack of aggressive stray canines that chased him off the course. He was forced to run more than a mile off track to escape the animals, losing a significant amount of time. This bizarre incident dropped him from a potential podium finish all the way down to 9th place overall. His fellow countryman, Jan Mashiani, managed to avoid the canines and finished in 12th place, another story of what could have been. So let's recap the madness. The winner cheated, the real winner was poisoned, and top contenders were waylaid by naps and canines. Out of the 32 runners who started the race, only 14 managed to cross the finish line. That's a completion rate of less than 44%. This remains the lowest number of finishers for an Olympic marathon in history. The event was a complete and utter failure. The combination of extreme heat, choking dust, and a profound lack of water created dangerously inhumane conditions for the athletes. The race director, James Sullivan, was heavily criticized for his poor planning and his dangerous theories on purposeful dehydration. Of the 14 finishers, only Thomas Hicks and 2 others were not given some form of medical attention immediately after the race. The event was so disastrous that Olympic officials seriously considered discontinuing the marathon as an event altogether. Thankfully, the 1908 London Olympics featured a much better organized marathon, which restored faith in the event. The 1904 marathon serves as a powerful lesson in what not to do when organizing a major sporting event. It's a story so wild it sounds like fiction, but every bizarre detail is a part of our shared Olympic history. Today, the marathon is a celebrated event with meticulous planning for athlete safety, hydration, and course management. Hydration stations are placed every couple of miles, a stark contrast to the 2 stops available in 1904. Performance-enhancing substances are strictly banned and tested for, a world away from trainers administering poison as a stimulant. Cheating, like Fred Lorz's car ride, would be instantly caught by modern technology and countless cameras. The 1904 race remains a black eye on Olympic history, but also a valuable, if painful, learning experience. It highlights how far sports science, athlete care, and event management have come in the last century. The stories of Hicks, Carvajal, and Tao are tales of human endurance pushed to absurd and dangerous limits. It's a reminder that the polished spectacle we see today was built on a foundation of trial and, in this case, immense error. So next time you watch an Olympic marathon, remember the chaos of 1904, the stupidest and perhaps most human race ever run. It's a testament to progress and a story that proves that sometimes history is far stranger than any fiction.